Strike a match right now, watch the flame appear. That tiny orange flicker you just made, it took your species 3 million years to figure out. And the person who first did it on purpose, not by accident, not by stumbling onto a burning tree hit by lightning, but who sat down, picked up 2 rocks, and thought, I can make this happen, that person changed every single human being who came after them, including you. But before we get to that moment, you need to understand what the world looked like the night before it happened. Imagine you are a human being living roughly 400,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now Southern Europe. The sun is going down. You know what that means. Every predator that hunts you, the cave lions, the hyenas, the wolves, they all see better in the dark than you do. Your eyes are useless past a certain point. Your ears are average. You have no claws. You are, by any honest measure, not built for the night. So when darkness falls, you find a rock overhang, you pull your group close, and you stop moving. You do not sleep easily. You listen. Every sound outside the perimeter is a threat. Every rustle in the brush could be the last thing you ever hear. This was not occasional fear. This was every single night of your life, and your parents' lives, and their parents' lives, stretching back further than anyone could count. And fire? Fire existed. You knew what it was. Lightning struck dry grass, and the whole hillside went up. You had felt the heat from a distance. You had watched animals flee from it. You may have even crept toward a dying fire left by a lightning strike and felt for the first time what warmth at night actually meant, what safety felt like in the dark. But when that fire went out, it was gone. You had no way to bring it back. You were at the mercy of the sky. This is the world the first firemaker was born into. A world where warmth and light and safety were things that happened to you, not things you could create. A world where the night belonged entirely to things that wanted to eat you. And then someone decided that was not acceptable anymore. Nobody knows their name. Nobody knows if it was a man or a woman, a teenager or someone older. Nobody knows exactly where they were sitting or what they were thinking. But scientists have a surprisingly clear picture of what probably happened, and it is stranger and more accidental than you might expect. Here's what we know. The oldest solid evidence of humans deliberately creating fire, not using it, not maintaining it, but actually making it from scratch, comes from sites in Europe and Africa, dating to roughly 300,000 to 400,000 years ago. Researchers have found iron pyrite and flint scraped together at the same sites, the prehistoric equivalent of a lighter. They found traces of fungus called hominid, which catches a spark and holds it like a slow fuse. This was not random. Someone figured out a system. But the first time it happened, there was no system. There was just a person and a moment. The leading theory is friction. A stick pressed into a groove in dry wood, spun fast between the palms, over and over, until the friction produces a tiny coal, a pinpoint of heat so small you could miss it if you blinked. That coal gets transferred to a handful of dry grass, cupped in both hands, and you blow on it slowly, steadily, until the grass catches. The whole process, if you know what you are doing, takes about 60 seconds. If you have never done it before in your life, it probably took this person hours. Think about what that means. They saw something happen. Maybe they were scraping a stone tool and a spark jumped. Maybe they were drilling into wood for another reason entirely and noticed heat building under their hands. And instead of ignoring it, something in their brain locked onto it. That pattern recognition, that ability to see a connection between an action and a result, and then deliberately repeat it, that is not animal behavior. That is something else entirely. And then it worked. A flame appeared where there had been nothing. Out of 2 sticks and 2 hands and pure stubbornness, this person produced something that, for their entire life, up to that moment, had only ever come from the sky. We do not know if they screamed. We do not know if they ran. We do not know if the people around them understood what they were seeing, or if it took days for anyone to grasp what had just changed. But something had changed. Everything had changed. And deep in whatever passed for their mind in that moment, some part of them must have known it. The first fire did not change the world overnight. That is not how human history works. Ideas spread slowly, generation by generation, camp by camp, tribe by tribe. But once the knowledge existed, once even one person understood that fire was something you could make, and not just find the clock started ticking on everything you now take for granted. Start with the night. For the first time in the history of your species, darkness was negotiable. You did not have to sit in silence and wait for predators. You could push the night back. A circle of firelight 30 feet wide became the safest place any human being had ever stood after sunset. Predators that had hunted your ancestors for millions of years would not cross that line. The psychological shift alone is almost impossible to overstate. An entire species that had spent every night of its existence in fear suddenly had a door it could close. But the deeper changes were slower and stranger. Cooking had existed before deliberate fire, tied to natural burns and opportunistic use of dying flames. Now it became reliable, consistent, something you could plan around. And cooking, as we now understand, is one of the most transformative technologies in human history. Raw food forces your digestive system to do enormous amounts of work. Cooked food arrives partly broken down. Your gut extracts more calories from every bite and spends less energy doing it. Over thousands of generations, human digestive tracts shortened, and the energy freed up from digestion went somewhere. It went to the brain. The organ that already made you different from everything else on the planet got bigger, got more connected, got hungrier for exactly the kind of rich cooked food that fire made possible. Then came the hours. Before deliberate fire, useful daylight was all you had. Maybe 12 hours in summer, 8 in winter, and then nothing. Controlled fire handed your ancestors 2 to 4 extra hours every single evening. That does not sound revolutionary until you multiply it across thousands of generations. Those hours became the campfire. The campfire became the place where humans talked after the work of the day was done. And the talk that happened at night was different from daytime talk. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups have found that daytime conversation is almost entirely practical. Logistics, food, tools, territory. But night conversation around a fire is stories, myths, jokes, questions about where the world came from and where it is going. This is where human culture was born. Not in a city, not in a temple. Around a fire that someone decided to make instead of wait for. Every story you've ever been told, every song, every religion, every philosophy, every piece of art traces its ancestry back to those extra hours, to the darkness that one person figured out how to push away. Here's the part that should stop you cold. You have never lived a single day without fire? Not one. You woke up this morning and the heat in your home was running. You made coffee over a flame or a heating element that traces its ancestry directly back to combustion. You drove to work burning fuel. That is, at its core, the same chemical reaction your ancestor discovered in a handful of dry grass. The screen you are watching right now is powered by electricity generated, in most parts of the world, by burning something. Coal, natural gas, oil, fire, dressed up in modern clothing. We did not move past fire. We just got better at hiding it. But here's what we actually lost in the process. For hundreds of thousands of years, every human being on this planet ended their day the same way. They sat around an open flame with the people they loved, and they talked until they were tired. The fire did something to them that we are only beginning to understand scientifically. Anthropologist Christopher Lynn at the University of Alabama found that watching a real fire, not a video of fire, not a photograph, but an actual open flame, causes blood pressure to drop measurably within minutes. The longer people sit with fire, the more relaxed they become. The effect is stronger in social settings. His conclusion was that humans evolved a specific physiological response to firelight, that our nervous systems are literally calibrated to relax when we see an open flame surrounded by people we trust. Your body still expects this. Every evening, some part of your biology is waiting for the fire that is not coming. Instead, you get overhead lighting that keeps your cortisol elevated, screens pumping blue light into your retinas at 11 at night. A nervous system that never quite gets the signal that the day is done and you are safe. The first person who ever made fire on purpose did not know what they were starting. They were cold, They were scared. They were tired of waiting for lightning. They picked up 2 sticks, and they refused to accept that warmth was something that only happened to them. That stubbornness, that refusal to accept the world exactly as it was handed to them, is the most human thing that has ever existed. It is in every invention, every discovery, every act of creation your species has ever produced. And every time you strike a match, every time you flick a lighter, every time you stare into a candle flame and feel something you cannot quite name, that is the memory. 300,000 years old, still running, still warm.